January 12th, 2020, we're in Salt Fork State Park, Ohio. Hiker Nathan Gray and a friend are armed with cameras and drones to document their trek through the woods when they make a startling discovery: the rib cages of several large animals nestled amongst the foliage.
Looks like they're ripped apart pretty good.
The duo continues to explore the area when suddenly they spot this: a creature, large and humanoid, walking through the trees unbothered by or unaware of their presence. Nathan manages to get his camera even closer for a better look. Zooming in, we can see the creature appears to be covered in some type of hair or fur, with lighter, almost white hair around the top of the head.
We had no idea what it was. It was just moseying on along, like it didn't have a care in the world.
Field researcher Cliff Barrickman is not at all surprised about where this footage was filmed.
Tons of Bigfoot reports come out of this particular area. Southeastern Ohio, in the area of Salt Fork State Park, is a thick, wooded wilderness. The Appalachian Mountains are no joke, and Ohio is pushed right up against them. Anything out of Southeast Ohio should be looked at very, very closely.
However, in this particular region of the U.S., the locals don't use the name Bigfoot. They call it the Ohio Grassman, based on the large dens it supposedly makes of grass and from its diet, which reportedly consists mainly of tall grass from Ohio fields.
It's the Ohio Grassman.
One of the most infamous sightings was in 1978 when a local family claimed to be haunted by a grassman that was later nicknamed the Minerva Monster.
These people reported large, scary monsters. They would actually stalk them in their home. The family that was reporting these sightings believed that the Sasquatch killed their German Shepherd by snapping its neck. The police themselves came to the conclusion that this was in fact a credible report of something incredible happening.
That sort of violent behavior may explain the bones Nathan and his friend found in the woods. And while it doesn't explain the Grassman sightings from decades ago, Barrickman says there may be another possible explanation for what's in Nathan's video from 2020.
One other theory that's been put forth is that these animals are just normal animals that are being misidentified after the Zanesville massacre.
In 2011, an exotic animal collector released 50 animals into the Ohio woods, including Bengal tigers, lions, cougars, and even a baboon.
But one of the animals that was not killed is a baby grizzly bear. Could this animal here be a survivor of the Zanesville massacre?
The chaos in Zanesville was a catalyst for Ohio's exotic animal ownership laws that went into effect in 2014, which shut down any other potential tiger kings. So is what we're seeing in the video a grizzly, a grassman, or something else? Our experts are tracking the evidence. Wildlife biologist Stephanie Manka dismisses the idea this could be a surviving grizzly.
If this really were a grizzly bear, we would expect to have more reports, fecal samples, bear claw marks, some evidence that a bear is living in that area. And this scene looks really consistent with a human in a costume.
Let's focus on this thing's arms for a moment. Note that all apes have arms longer than their legs, enabling better quadruped movement and efficient brachiation, the ability to swing between trees. But according to anthropologist and Sasquatch expert Jeff Meldrum, we're not seeing anything like that here.
You can see the upper limb is barely to the crotch. That suggests human limb proportions. And the head is kind of large, more like a hood. It looks to me like someone in camo gear with a hoodie and insulated pants and heavy boots on.
Our verdict? It's a hoax. Though you have to give the guys credit for planting those animal bones. Nice try, fellas. It's April 2020 in Billings, Montana. Resident Sean Reagan wakes up to discover a dead deer on his property. He decides to check his home security system to see if it's caught the culprit overnight. But upon review, he instead notices something even scarier than the average wild predator. Watch the right side of the footage. Out of the darkness walks a tall white figure that resembles an upside-down V. There don't appear to be arms, a torso, or even much of a head. After a few seconds, it slinks back into the darkness.
We just freaked out the second that we saw it because it didn't look like anything you would see in the woods of the United States anywhere. It had such an inhuman quality to it.
We've enhanced the dark, grainy video as best we can, and you can see that despite its abnormal shape, the thing sure looks like it's taking deliberate steps. And Sean isn't the first person to inadvertently catch a glimpse of something shaped like that. Another video from 2007 depicting a very similar figure continues to bounce around the internet.
This video was set up by a man in Fresno, California. It's security footage, and what he captured was something incredibly bizarre. They move with this extremely strange gait. The creatures were eventually dubbed the Fresno Nightcrawlers.
The man took his footage to authorities, but they came up empty. And as the footage ascended to internet fame, reports of other encounters with so-called nightcrawlers bubbled up.
Nightcrawlers, according to people that have encountered them, are kind of phantom-like apparitions. The main characteristics being these very long, lanky legs, and really not much else in terms of a morphology or a physical body.
Any attempts to explain their origins or any connection to the dead deer on Sean's property are as ambiguous as these pieces of footage.
Some people on the internet have connected the Fresno Nightcrawlers to supposed Native American legends, that the Nightcrawlers are actually earth fairies that came down from the sky. There are also photos floating around on the internet of these wooden sculptures of creatures that look a little bit like the Fresno Nightcrawlers. However, no one really knows where those photos came from.
Wherever this creature came from, its brief presence is something Sean will not soon forget.
It starts off as disbelief and then kind of trickles into paranoia about going back out, paranoia about even staying in the area, and also paranoia of even bringing this up to other people.
Both Sean and the Fresno homeowner never spotted the nightcrawlers again, but people as far away as Poland have reported similar sightings of these eerie figures. No physical specimen has ever been found. So let's see what we can determine when our experts put their best foot forward. First, archaeologist Ed Barnhart examines the theory that these creatures could be connected to Native American folklore.
The Navajo talk about a similar phenomena called skinwalkers. They come out at night and they are evil witches who can transform into animals, but they do not look like anything that the Indians have ever talked about.
None of the known Native American folklore talks of a creature without a head or torso like these things. Barnhart's assessment is that this supposed legend is little more than internet speculation, perhaps even fabrication. So perhaps Sean's camera just caught a person who was partly obscured.
It's possible that someone just had some very brightly colored pants on and they had a dark shirt, but the legs themselves don't really look particularly human. The legs look kind of spindly, like they're just, they end in points.
West concludes Sean was likely duped by a simple prank. He shows us how he thinks it was done.
I took a pair of my pajamas and I put this little wooden armature here, which is a type of thing a puppeteer uses, and moved the armature to move the legs of the puppet. And we got something that kind of looks a little bit like a pair of pajama legs just walking along.
Notice the similarity in the motion of the alleged nightcrawler and mixed puppet, which is pulled along by a thin, taut string. And the type of camera also plays a role in the illusion.
If you've got a low-resolution security camera video, the strings really aren't very apparent. They're very easily hidden. This type of hoax is quite easy to pull off.
Our verdict, Sean was the victim of a hoax. We can't say, though, whether it was intentionally meant to scare him or was just someone playing up the online nightcrawler legend. The dead deer found on the property was likely a coincidence. As for the original Fresno Nightcrawler video that set all of this off, probably a version of the same stunt. It's April 2020 in the woods near Scranton, Pennsylvania. Chase Floyd, a science teacher, is investigating mysterious howling and whooping noises that he started hearing the night before. Chase continues to record as he explores the area. He now suspects the noises he's hearing were made by a Sasquatch. Let's take a closer listen. It sounds like a strange whooping noise. As Chase seemingly moves closer to the source of the sounds, his breathing gets faster and more labored, but he forges on anyway.
Right now, I'm starting to get lightheaded. I really don't feel good right now. As I kept going, I started feeling nauseous. I got to a point where I was like, I just kind of want to get out of here and lay down. So I've done some research on unusual animal sounds. So a lot of like canines make weird noises, but nothing that would make the sounds that are in the video. At least not that I know of in Pennsylvania.
Once Chase shares the video, it racks up over 600,000 views. Field researcher Ken Gerhardt says the animal sounds recorded by Chase are all too familiar.
I've actually heard similar vocalizations, and these are definitely attributed to the Bigfoot phenomenon.
What's more, Gerhardt thinks Chase may be experiencing omoing, a phenomenon first described in Native American folklore dating back 2 centuries. Omoing is said to be an overwhelming energy experienced in close proximity of a Sasquatch. It manifests itself in a variety of symptoms, including temporary paralysis.
I feel good.
So omoing is described as a type of infrasound. The theory behind predators utilizing this infrasound is that it is a way to disrupt, confuse, or disorient their prey animals.
If Bigfoot actually exists, then omoing may be a predatory mechanism, or maybe it's a defense mechanism like a skunk's odor. So there are really 2 questions here, folks. First, what made these sounds? And second, is there anything to this theory of omoing? Soundscape ecologist Ben Gottesman breaks down the sound waves.
In order to find out what these alleged sounds are, let's compare them to some of the mammals in Pennsylvania.
Gottesman starts with elk, which are known to produce bugle calls like this.
It really isn't a match. The frequency range doesn't match up. The harmonic characteristics don't match up. Up next, we have coyotes. The frequency range is much higher, at around 650 hertz. That's barely at the upper range of the alleged whoop.
Gottesman is unable to make any match, but Professor of Biology Floyd Hayes says that infrasound is for real, and while humans can't hear it, they can feel it. In fact, scientists believe tigers can produce a roar under 20 hertz below the human hearing range. That has the power to stun or paralyze an animal. Also, the lower the frequency, the farther the sound can travel.
Infrasound is something that several large species of animals can produce, and some human vocalists are supposedly capable of producing infrasound.
But Hayes has a bone to pick with the idea that Chase is suffering from omoing or any sort of infrasound attack. His behavior just doesn't make sense.
He's not feeling well. He doesn't leave the area and he doesn't go to relax somewhere. He still stays there and talks.
After further analysis, Dr. Gottesman says that the sounds recorded by Chase Floyd resemble another set of alleged Bigfoot recordings he's analyzed for us in the past.
When I was listening to the alleged sounds, I couldn't help but think back to Ron Morehead's Sierra sounds.
He's referring to Ron Morehead's 1970s recordings known as the Sierra sounds, which many consider genuine Bigfoot calls.
On top, we have audio from Ron Morehead's Sierra sounds. I'm just gonna play this series of 3 whoops, and notice how the third one has a special flourish. And now, and if I ran a cross correlation on these sounds, they would be upwards of 99% similar. It's the same sound. Down to the tape recording artifact present in the Morehead tape. This video is a hoax.
So while we can't rule out the possibility that omoing is real and terrifying, it wasn't the cause of Mr. Floyd's symptoms. Our verdict, this is a hoax. These sounds are a copy of the alleged Bigfoot recordings made in the early 1970s. June 2020, Wolf Island, Georgia. News breaks that a man named Jeff Warren has come across something extraordinary on the beach. Fortunately, he had his phone to record it. Take a good look. The video shows what looks like an odd, washed-up carcass. There appear to be some entrails nearby as if something took a bite out of it. To the rear, there was a long tail, maybe to help propulsion in the water. On the left side, we see what appears to be a flipper, and most interesting, what looks like a long, slender neck with a small reptilian head. So what is it? Cliff Barrickman has an idea.
The shape of it suggests a plesiosaur of some sort.
A plesiosaur is an ancient reptile that lived during the time of the dinosaurs. And for field researcher Ken Gerhardt, that is particularly exciting.
In and around the town of Darien, Georgia, in the Altamaha River, there have been accounts of a mysterious monster known as the Altamaha. It's typically described as a plesiosaurian type of animal. And like this creature, it fits well into the paradigm of other lake monsters and sea serpents around the world. Similar to the Loch Ness Monster, Canada's Ogopogo, the Lake Champlain Monster in upstate New York, and so on.
The video hits the local news and soon goes viral, with many people claiming it must be the sea creature affectionately known as Alti to local Georgians. The legendary creature Altamaha is said to have a small head, a long neck and tail, and flippers. That all seems to track. Could this video be proof that the ancient legend is real? Let's check with our experts. First off, marine biologist Dr. Shay Conger says that despite its similarities to Altamaha, this creature bears resemblance to something more recognizable.
It's almost an exact replica of the cartilage of a basking shark. And these are often washed up on beaches and mistaken for sea monsters.
Growing up to 50 feet long, basking sharks are the second largest shark on Earth. When these giants decompose, they tend to first lose their lower head area, along with their dorsal and caudal fins. The result is a carcass that is easy to mistake for a plesiosaur or sea monster. However, Conger says this carcass doesn't quite add up.
If this were the cartilage structure of a basking shark, I would expect that it would be a lot rougher, it would be kind of whitish in color.
And in fact, when Dr. Conger examines the creature's state of decomposition, she doesn't see a marine animal at all. She smells a rat.
If this were an animal that was found on the beach, we would expect it to be somewhat decomposed. Instead, this animal is not decomposed at all, even though it appears to have some scratch marks around it. But there's also what appear to be entrails in front of it, and that's really not typical of the natural decomposition process. Based on the fact that it appears to be completely intact and not decomposed, I would conclude that this is a hoaxed or manufactured object.
We attempted to contact Jeff Warren, who filmed the video, but it turns out that was a made-up name, and he disappeared after sending the video to news agencies. So did the carcass. So we did some further investigating ourselves and found that this Altamaha was actually a sculpture created by an artist who goes by the name Zardulu.
Appearance becomes meaningless in our presumption of truth.
Zardulu creates anonymous viral videos. You may be familiar with her earlier masterpieces, Pizza Rat and Raccoon Riding an Alligator. So the verdict here is clear. This is an artistically created hoax. We asked Zardulu for an interview. Unsurprisingly, she declined. She did direct us to her manifesto, which declares that she creates work for the world to enjoy. I hope you enjoyed it too.